To support this podcast, go to positivesarcasm.com/donate. Any amount is appreciated. Once again, positivesarcasm.com/donate. Thank you and enjoy the program. Jay here, positivesarcasm.com, recorded here from New Hampshire's beautiful seacoast inside the Spare Parts Studio. Like, subscribe, share, donate. Positivesarcasm.com/donate. Any amount is appreciated. If you have questions, concerns, or comments, you can go ahead. Hit me up on that website, positivesarcasm.com. Do people even have websites anymore besides me? You can also hit me up on Instagram at positive_sarcasm. Be nice in those DMs. Be nice. Or you can email me directly, positivesarcasm@outlook.com. Also, if you're looking for, if you're posing music, if you are a fitness competitor, of course, still in the mix. Email me directly. Subject, posing music. Beautiful evening alongside New Hampshire's beautiful seacoast. Still doing some. I'm a busy guy. I'm a busy guy. Thankfully, not preparing for hurricanes. Shout out to everybody who's dealing with. Shout out. I wish all well to those dealing with the stuff down in all the Carolinas, Virginia, Georgia, Florida, with all the natural disasters. Just. Hey, obviously, I have family down there. Hope everybody's doing okay. In the meantime, let's go back to what this channel, what this podcast is currently. The current format of this podcast, which is Q&A. What's funny is this podcast, one of the questions and dilemmas that generally comes up in this podcast is about feelings for family members and possible sexual encounters and other possible uncomfortable situations regarding family members. It's an odd one. Normally one that people would, if they were smarter, they'd stay away from. This has been a topic since this podcast got its very first Spare Parts Studio. Since it first actually went live with video. This has been a topic that has resonated time and time again, and it does not resonate with me. This is not a thing that I suffer from or have to deal with. This is something that it just keeps coming up as a comment, as a question or a comment. And I had one where I was there's a situation, a Q&A, where a wife wanted to have a threesome with her brother. My response was definitely a hard no. I think I screamed it at the top of my lungs. But I got a comment from Jim McFadden Rides. Now, I don't know if this is legitimate or not, but we're just going to go for it here. So, Jim McFadden Rides, which I thought this, I thought I lost this comment on the last episode, but apparently I didn't lose it or whatever. I'm like, I swear it was here, and I literally spent 2 or 3 minutes trying to find it in the middle of the podcast. I said, screw it. Well, here it is. I found it. Believe it. He says, Jim McFadden writes, believe it or not, this is not that uncommon because, not that uncommon. Okay. All right. Because my wife's brother wanted to fool around. This is a terribly written comment, but we'll read it. Believe it or not, this is not uncommon because my wife's brother wanted to fool around with her, but a strict dad kept this from happening. When he died, my wife told me she had promised her brother when that day was here, she would do it with him. He was actually how I met her because we were friends for many years and get along well now. She then told me she would just have to break her promise because she's married now. I said, wait a minute. What if we both have a threesome with you? She said, OMG. You're really serious? You and him both with me? I told her if it was consenting to her. She said it was, and we stayed at his place when we came in. Okay. So let me figure out the grammatical issue with this whole comment here. You're stating this, that you're wait a minute. Hold on. My wife's brother wanted to fool around with her. Wait a minute. Okay. am I reading this correctly? My wife's brother. So if you have a sister, but she has a brother, and those two wanted to fool around. So direct family members. We're not talking about third cousins, fourth cousins, second cousins, or first cousins even. We're talking about direct blood. Direct blood. And we're not talking about procreation here. We're talking about just straight fucking. They want to fool around with each other. Brother and sister. The, quote, strict dad. How do you consider how would this dad be considered strict? Hey, don't fuck your sister. Hey, sister, don't fuck your brother. But daddy said no. That's considered a strict dad, at least in this scenario. Okay, fine. Strict dad. When he dies, she promised him that she'd do it with him. Okay. And then her brother, whom she wants to screw, is the reason you met her. You've been friends for many years and get along well now. She then told me that she can't do it because she's married to you now. So she can't have sex with her brother because she's married to you now. Oh, so sad. But then you went, hey, wait a minute. What if I'm in the equation too? So as long as I'm screwing you and he's screwing you, you can have that. So wait a minute. So it was going to be that. And then what if we have a threesome? So she wanted to have sex with her brother. You proposed a threesome with you, her, and her brother. And she consented to it. So you think it's totally cool that you got to have sex with your wife, and your wife's brother. Am I reading this right? This is like a thing. This is not you're right at the very top. You said, believe it or not, this is not that uncommon. Oh, do enlighten me more. Do enlighten me more where, please, tell me how uncommon this is. Stepbrother, I'm stuck in the dryer. Please help me. Stepbrother. This is really that uncommon that the brother and the sister wanted to hook up for the longest time, but they couldn't because strict daddy said no. But since you're okay with it as long as you're involved, this is totally fine. And this is something that's never going to happen again? Or is this going to be like a continuous thing? Or I'm just curious. But hey, you know what? You do you, boo. If this is fine with you, then this is fine with you. I'm not sure if it's legal, but hey, if you can't keep it in the pants, keep it in the family. So apparently this was a thing, and they seem fine with it. And I don't think I have anything else to say more than that. So we're just going to go ahead and hit X on that. Pretty fucking disgusting. And we're going to move forward with possibly some less insane Q&As, courtesy of dig.com, which I think actually that Q&A originally came from. So I'm sure that these will be far more tamed. Jesus Christ. Thank God I'm not a freaking ambulance driver. All right. So we're going to move forward with dig.com Q&A. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, you can hit me at my website, positivesarcasm.com. Like, subscribe, share. Anywhere where podcasts are available. Video version of this podcast available at Rumble and YouTube. Still trying to figure out the Spotify thing. Give it time, though. Evening coffee. Let's get after it. 3, 2, 1. A few months ago, we received an email from the big boss, head of our business unit, that we are entering a, quote, cost-cutting exercise due to business needs, and they need everyone to make efforts to ensure our costs/expenses are as close to zero as possible. I'm an internal I'm in an internal role that doesn't deal with contracts, purchases, software licensing, travel, etc. So there's only a limited amount I can contribute to the cost cutting. But I've done what I can. Example, I've walked 5 miles with heavy equipment rather than take public transport, which the others did. I, quote, forgot to claim for overtime payments that I should or could have claimed. Not in U.S., those laws don't apply. Okay. So those, not in U.S., so those laws don't apply. Okay. Didn't claim mileage for driving 2 hours out of my way multiple times, etc. It's galling every month the department admin sends out the emails asking for overtime forms and travel expenses, and I know a lot. I have a lot I could claim and don't. All right. We have to work late a couple times a month due to client deadlines. The company usually orders food in, and I've got on, quote, a hunger strike, conspicuously refusing to eat or order and working through while others eat the company-paid pizza, etc. We know in advance when we'll have to stay in late. Oh, why didn't they bring their own food, ? Because I don't believe that's a legit business expense. I tried to convince the others, but without success. I'm now asked to reduce my retirement contributions matched by the company, which will save them thousands of years. I've indicated to HR that I want to opt out of healthcare insurance at the next renewal date. I've done pretty much everything I can at this point, other than asking for a pay cut, which I could. I'm senior, single, and I have enough money, but I realize this could affect my prospects in the future. Okay. But I'm becoming more and more resentful of workers who haven't even considered the things I've done. They still submit overtime, travel expenses, etc. At some point, we'll have to pull together, but I feel like I'm the only one pulling. Why are you making so much sacrifices, though? Why are you doing this? First of all, why are you working for a company that is asking you or almost like guilt-tripping you into doing making these types of sacrifices? I understand if you come in like an hour early to work because maybe you are on salary and you like that early 45 minutes to an hour where nobody's there and you can actually get a decent amount done. You can have some food. You can check up on a few things online. You can poke around through your emails. You can get yourself settled before everybody comes in. And that way, before everybody comes in, you're ready to go. And it also may give you privileges to leave a few minutes early every day because you've been there an hour early. These are things. Maybe you necessarily don't take lunch. There are several things that you can do, regardless of whether or not you work in the United States or not. But let me see here. The sacrifices you're making may be to your own peril. So why would you want to be like, listen, those people, maybe these other people need this money. You don't know. You don't walk in their shoes. And quite frankly, why would you want to work for a company that is essentially trying to make these sacrifices? That's the thing. Regardless of whether the company is a good company or a bad company, obviously, if they're going through this much cost-cutting measures and their name is not Twitter/X, then why are you even bothering to stay on board here? If you're worried about your prospects in the future, then you should actually consider your prospects and try moving forward with them and getting out of this company that apparently seems to be trimming the line a little too close. But the overtime, the late hours, the health insurance, the 401k matching, it's like, forget it. Who are you working for? Are you working for them or are you working for you? Because it seems like more and more you're working for them, and that's not why you work. You work to better yourself. You work to carry a load. You work to be forward yourself and do just good things in general. You want to work for a company that makes a difference. Ultimately, I don't know if this company makes a difference, but it seems like it's starting to come at your own peril. So what I would do is I would actually just go look for another job or start your own business or do something like that. Obviously, if you're older and you're in retirement, maybe you consider something else. But ultimately, this is not a company that I would want to work for regardless. So I would just move on. That's what I would do. Hold on. I need a sip of coffee. Should I try to accommodate an acquaintance who drops by unexpectedly and then criticizes me for my messy house? I have an acquaintance who's been in my home a few times, even though I've never invited him over. He's shown up at my door without calling or texting and asks to come in for tea. He's pleasant and I don't mind the company when I'm free. But on a recent visit, he said I should keep my home tidier if I wanted him to come over again. I keep my house clean, but he's shown up when I've been in the middle of folding laundry, for example, or when I've had some papers on the coffee table, a towel hanging to dry in the bathroom, my gym shoes besides the door, and a coffee cup besides the kitchen sink. When I'm expecting guests, I make my home look like nobody lives there, but you do live there, though. I'll come back to that. But am I really obligated to keep my home consistently spotless just in case someone drops in? Well, first of all, a house is easy to keep organized. An apartment is generally easy to keep organized unless you're planning on moving out. Then in that case, sometimes things go willy-nilly because you're packing shit up, you're moving things around, you're getting ready to get the hell out of there. But ultimately, a house is not hard to keep organized. And if your house is generally organized, what's the problem here? Now, I do have a problem with this guest of yours. It seems like you do keep. Now, I just have a problem with the way you said I keep my house when I have guests like nobody lives there. No, you do live there. You do live there, and honestly, if a person walks into a house and it looks like somebody kind of lives there, it'll make them a little more comfortable to actually just sit down. It's like, yeah. If I have people, it's like, yeah, come on in, sit down, put your feet up. Take your shoes off, relax. Chill on the couch, chill on the love sack, chill on the lounge chairs, relax. This is not like an old school 50s house where there's plastic on the couch and there's a box of Entenmann's that you can't open unless it's strictly for guests. This is not the scenario I'm talking about. Basically, this person who comes in uninvited, they just show up and you're like, oh, I like the company, and then they come in, they talk shit about your house. Dude, get out. Don't criticize my house. They're an acquaintance. Is it just tea or something else going on? Honestly, if it's something else going on, take the criticism and get laid. But if it's just tea and they're criticizing your house, it's like, hey, piss off. It doesn't, houses are never spotless. And it's like if you're spending all the time cleaning, it's like obviously your organization is off then. If you have good organization, you don't always necessarily need to clean. And second, this person wants to keep coming over. They need to kind of keep their mouth shut, but it doesn't seem that they're going to. So I would probably just be like, hey, you know what? Why don't you just not come over anymore? Because if you're just going to talk shit about where I lay my head, especially like unless you're like a hoarder and you're unorganized and stuff like that, then maybe take advice from them. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like the person you're talking to is kind of a douchebag and probably shouldn't step foot at your door anymore. Let's move on to the next one. My husband and I have 2 girls, ages 5 and 3. Ooh. I'm very happy. I didn't mean it like that. I'm very happy with my kids, but my husband has a legacy name. Think something like John the Fourth. Okay. Very good. And he is adamant about having a son to continue the chain. All right. When he found out our first boy was going to be a girl, he was fine, assuming our next would be a boy. Then when the ultrasound revealed our second was also a girl, he was cantankerous throughout the pregnancy, but warmed up once our second daughter was born. For the last year, my husband has pressured me to have a third child in hopes of having a son, so there'll be a John V. 2 kids are enough for me, but I've agreed to one more and made it clear this was it. We get what we get. I'm not having a 4th kid. And he agreed. After 2 months of trying, I found out I was pregnant. My husband was walking on clouds. Okay. Then came the ultrasound. We are having girl number 3. My husband was crushed. During the drive home, he barely said 2 words. I figured I would give him some space, left him tinkering with his classic car for a few hours after we got back. But later that evening, he said something that has made me rethink. Let me repeat this because this one's kind of serious. But later that evening, he said something that has me rethinking my marriage. He asked if I would be willing to have an abortion so we could try again for a son. When I found my voice, I screamed at him to get out. He left and spent the night at his sister's place. The next day he called. All apologies, but I can't stop thinking about what he suggested. Should this be a deal breaker, or should I write it off as him grieving for his son he will never have and give him another chance? All right. Well, neither. This is not a deal breaker, but it should not just be written off. This seems like there is something else that needs to be talked about, maybe with a third-party source, but ultimately there's a lot here that needs to be pulled apart in order to move this relationship into a stronger foundation. Because that is, unless this was talked about in the very beginning, where if this was all agreed, like, I'm just going to leave this as it is. You make the argument as you will based on your morals. I'm just saying, if you guys agreed that this was the route you were going to take as child number 3, okay. But this was not discussed. This was, we're going to have kids, and you said if it was 3, there's 3. There's going to be a third. He wants to, he originally said maybe we should abandon it. He asked if you would be willing to. You were upset. He apologized. All apologies. When you say the words, he called the next day. So you screamed at him to get out. He left. Okay. You screamed at him to get. He said something very, very stupid. Very stupid. Egregious. You screamed at him to get out. He obliged. He left. The very next day he called. He was overly apologetic. All apologies means he was nothing but apologetic. He knew what he said was wrong. Okay. Now, okay. That's, the marriage can, at this point, can go one of two ways. That's it, at this point. Where this needs to be talked about and move forward. There cannot be any resentment towards your 2 daughters and your 3rd daughter. There just can't be. And this whole, legacy, leaving the legacy behind thing, that's, look, I get it, but ultimately, your daughters could have sons. Think about that. Have respect for your daughters, because your daughters could have sons. That's the thing. So your legacy is going to continue with your daughters. And those daughters could have more sons and daughters. And that's where your husband's focus should be. But before that can even take place, your husband needs to, and I consider your husband to be in the wrong here with what he said. But he's making good on it. But this relationship at this point needs to be talked through. All the decision making, there needs to be counseling. Everything needs to be figured out so that these types of comments don't happen again. This relationship, this marriage, this bond needs to be strong going forward. So you should give him this opportunity to right this wrong. That's what you should do. Because you're asking the question, should this be a deal breaker? No. Should you just write this off? No. No. It's a very poor thing to say. But it is, I think, redeemable. So ultimately, this needs to be talked about. This needs to be figured out. He's obviously upset. He's, I guess, mentally grieving about it. He's emotionally grieving about it. So he's tinkering around with his classic car, which is, typical guy thing to do. I mean, I do that. But I don't do it to get away from people. I do it because I love my cars. I love stuff. I'm very interested in things, which is a typical male trait. But I don't do it to get away from people I care about. I don't, because then what I'm doing is I'm taking that anger or that upsetness that I have, and now I'm translating that into working on a car, which that takes concentration and patience and focus. And you working on your car's not always going to agree with you. You need to be in the right frame of mind to attack something like that. So if he apologized, that's the first step in the right direction. And from there, you can rebuild a relationship, because that's kind of a foundational crack right there. But it can be filled and it can be resolved. Let's do one more. But first, coffee. Here we go. I've been dating Mike about 2 months. We were at a coffee shop the other day, and the barista called out a male name. A young woman picked up the drink. Mike followed her towards the door, tapped her shoulder, and said something like, "The barista called out male name. Is that you?" The young woman made a huge stink and implied that Mike was being racist and accusing her, a person of color, whatever, of stealing the drink. Mike was very upset by this and has brought it up several times, in indignation, wanting me to validate that he did nothing wrong. I'm not sure what to say to Mike. I have just reassured him that I knew his heart was in the right place. But the more discussions we have about it, the more I wonder if there was something else I'm supposed to say or feel. One thing the young woman said that has stuck with me, it's not his job to police other people's behavior, which I agree with. But we also haven't been together long enough for me to draw any major conclusions or try to counsel him to confront his own racism or paternalism or whatever is behind his actions. Well, okay, hold on. We were at a coffee shop. The barista, okay, so it's probably Starbucks, called out a male name. A young woman picked up the drink. All right. So the young woman picked up the drink. Did she order the drink in her name? Or did she order the drink in a dude's name that she was picking up for? That's the thing. Ultimately, Mike's job is to get his drink. Okay. So Mike was at a coffee shop. The barista called out a male name. The young woman picked up the drink. Now, here's the thing. Did the barista call out the name Mike? If that's the case, did the woman pick up the drink named Mike and walk out the door? Or did she say some other dude's name and that chick picked it up? That's the thing. If the barista yelled out a name other than Mike, you're out of it, dude. You're out of it. Like, seriously, like, do you care at that point? Your concern at a coffee shop with baristas is your drink and your drink alone. Nobody else's. Okay? All right. If there is a drink for Igloo up there and a Tyrannosaurus Rex walks through the door and picks up that drink and leaves, it's not your problem. Unless your name is either Igloo or Tyrannosaurus Rex, it's not your problem. None of this is your problem. All right? You don't care about other people's drinks at a coffee shop. You care about your drink. And you can, if it's taking too long, you can always ask, hey, miss, did you miss my drink? Your concern is your drink. You paid for a drink, you get your drink, you leave. It is not your job to be policing other people's stuff. This is not a matter of, I don't know if it's a matter of racism. It's probably not. He's probably just some overbearing douchebag that probably did something very, very stupid, and he's obviously upset about it. So he's playing it over and over and over and over again in his head. When what he should do is just be like, you know what? Their behavior I don't know if their behavior was correct, but mine is too much. I got to stop this pattern. So Mike, to be honest with you, from what I see, Mike fucked up. Mike should just be focusing on him. Just focus on you. You're with somebody. You're at a coffee shop with this woman that you're dating for about 2 months. You have two concerns: your drink and her drink. Nobody else's. Don't worry about if some she/her picks up a he/him and walks out the door. That's not your concern. You don't care. You're concerned about the drink with the name Mike on it. And if the she/her didn't pick up the he/him with the name Mike on it, then who gives a shit? It's coffee. I think that's yeah, exactly. I'm done. Good. Perfect. All right. We're done here. Thank you guys for listening, watching, and subscribing. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, you can hit me up on my website, positivesarcasm.com. Like, subscribe, share, donate, positivesarcasm.com/donate. Any amounts appreciated. Positivesarcasm@outlook.com. Instagram @positive_sarcasm, or through my website, positivesarcasm.com. Rumble and YouTube is where you can find the video. Anywhere else, audio versions, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, Apple Podcasts, blah, 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 blah. It's all there. Enjoy it. You can also download it and stream it from my website directly, positivesarcasm.com. But in the meantime, Thank you for listening, watching, and subscribing. And I'll talk to you all next week. Recorded here from the Spare Parts Studio alongside New Hampshire's beautiful seacoast for entertainment purposes only. This has been a Positive Sarcasm presentation.